Hello everyone, this is Dapuzü from Trinity School. This lesson is for Class 7 Social Science from Volume 2, Block 13. The topic we will be discussing today is on democracy. In this lesson, we will study the history of democracy, democratic and authoritarian governments, rule of law, democracy, a popular government. Firstly, we will go to the introduction of the democracy. The word democracy, it originates from the two Greek words, demos, which means people, and kratos, meaning rule. Therefore, democracy means rule of the people. Democracy is a form of government in which people have the right to take part in the government. They can take either directly or indirectly. People can directly contest election and get elected to govern the country. This is called the direct democracy. On the other hand, they can also elect representatives who can govern the country on their behalf. This is known as indirect democracy. Most of the countries of the world today have a democratic form of government, while modern democracy is quite different from the democracy that existed thousands of years ago. Now we will go to the history of democracy. In the history of democracy, we will discuss on history, sorry, democracy in Greece, democracy in Rome, democracy in England, democracy in the United States of America, democracy in France, and finally democracy in the 20th century. So, democracy in Greece. Democracy originated in ancient Greece around 7th century BCE. The states in ancient Greece were small, that people could gather at one place and hold decisions to make laws. People took decisions directly on important matters and not through elected representatives. This form of democracy, where people directly take part in the government, it is known as direct democracy. However, not everyone could take part in this government. Women, foreigners, and slaves who worked for the nobleman, they were not allowed to take part in the government. Democracy in Rome. Democracy developed in Rome as well. In 509 BCE, the ruler or the emperor of Rome was overthrown and replaced by a government headed by representatives known as councils. These councils were elected by the citizens and advised by a body called the Senate. This Senate are the state councils of ancient Roman Republic and Empire, which shared legislative powers with the popular assemblies, administrations with the magistrate, and judicial power with the knights. The councils could govern the country for 1 year, after which there would be a new elections. This was an example of indirect democracy. In Rome, the common people had the right to vote, to elect representatives, and also to contest the elections. Democracy in England. England was always ruled by a king or queen, which is the monarchic system of government. During the 16th century, the king became weak as more power were given to the parliament. The House of Commons of the British Parliament was an organization where leaders were elected by the people and laws were made by the elected representatives. As the power of the parliament increased, the king also had to follow the laws made by the parliament. The people enjoyed many rights. However, the right to vote was only given to those people who owned land. Landless people and women did not have the right to vote. After many years of struggle, landless people finally got the right to vote. After a very long struggle, that is not until 1928 that women got the right to vote as well. Democracy in the United States of America. The United States of America was always a colony, was once a colony of the British Empire for many years. It was governed by the British king or queens, and the common people had no role in the government. In 1783, the colonists fought against the British rule and gained independence from the British. After the American War of Independence, many changes took place in the United States of America. It was the first country to have a written constitution, which means a constitution having a written record. The country was governed by an elected president according to the rules set in the constitution. The citizens were granted fundamental rights, which could not be violated by the government. Democracy in France. For a very long time, French society was divided into two main classes. Those who owned land, also called the landed aristocracy, and those who did not, that is, the working class. The working class was not treated well by the landed aristocracy. They were denied many rights and privileges in the society. As a result of working classes revolt against the landed aristocracy, which led to the French Revolution in 1789. People fought for equality, liberty, and fraternity. Equality means giving equal rights to every individual. Liberty means giving freedom, and fraternity means brotherhood. It was through this revolution that the working class and other underprivileged people got the freedom to speak and express their views, and also be treated as equals. The French Revolution made the common people powerful. This became an important feature of democracy. Equality and liberty, as main principles of democracy, were strengthened in the French Revolution. Democracy in the 20th century. The Second World War, which broke out in 1939 and ended in 1945, was fought to make the world a safer for democracy. The rise of three leaders, Adolf Hitler in Germany, Benito Mussolini in Italy, and Hirohito in Japan. They led to the Second World War. Hitler, Mussolini, and Hirohito were an authoritarian government, and under their rule, the freedom of the people was very limited. England and France, along with many allies mean in combination or working together with. Allies from Europe, Asia, Africa, and North America fought against the dictatorial rule of Hitler and Mussolini. At the same time, many countries of Africa and Asia were fighting for freedom against colonial rule. With the end of the Second World War, many newly independent countries of Asia and Africa chose democratic government because they gave power to the people rather than to one person or one group. During this period, the right to vote was granted to all adult citizens, including women. The governments of these countries took steps to end discrimination in society, to make sure that everyone was treated as equals. Next, we have democratic and authoritarian governments. In this, we will discuss on democracy, dictatorship, military dictatorship, one-party rule. As we had seen in the introduction, in the earlier video, we will once again discuss on democracy. In a democracy, the power to govern the country belongs to the people, mostly through elected representatives People have the right to elect their representatives to the government. The elected representatives make laws and take all the decisions for the country collectively on behalf of the people. All people are considered equal. The law is the same for everyone, and people enjoy many rights, such as the freedom of speech, expression, religion, um, and equality, liberty, and justice are the key features of a democratic government. Some examples of these democratic countries are India, USA, and France. Dictatorship. In a dictatorship, all the powers lies with one person. Usually, the leader of this form of government is called a dictator. A dictator either inherits the government or acquires power by force. Sometimes an elected leaders can become very powerful and rule like a dictator. Though Adolf Hitler was democratically elected in Germany, he soon started to rule like a dictator. The picture shows Hitler. The power of a dictator is unlimited. He or she takes all the decisions and makes all the laws for the country. People question a dictator can be imprisoned or killed. Under this government, people may or may not be treated as equals or be given fair treatment by law. They don't have the freedom to criticize the government. There is no guarantee of justice and equality. A dictatorship is a form of authoritarian government. Next, we have military dictatorship. In some authoritarian government, the country is ruled by the military, where the head of the army governs the country and takes all the decisions and makes the laws. People do not enjoy the freedom to express their opinion. This is known as a military dictatorship. In Uganda, Idi Amin was a military dictator with unlimited power from 1971 to 1979. The picture is Idi Amin. Other countries in recent times with this form of government were Myanmar, Libya, and Egypt. One party rule. In another form of authoritarian government, the country is governed by one political party which enjoys unlimited power. Like other authoritarian governments, this party takes all the decisions and makes laws for the country. It usually does not tolerate other views, and people do not have the freedom to criticize the government or choose leaders from different political parties during the elections. In such governments, other political parties do not exist. Some of these one party rule governments are China and North Korea. Now, I strongly recommend you to read case study of governments of two countries to understand better in the form of government. Next, we have the rule of law. The rule of law is an important feature of democracy. It means that the law is the same for everyone and all are equal before the law. Everyone, whether rich, poor, man, and woman, enjoys equal protection under the law. It also means that the government cannot act in any way it wishes because its powers are limited by the constitution and the law. The rule of law is an important feature of a democratic government. Rule of law makes democracy different from forms of authoritarian government. Unless the rule of law exists in a country, people cannot be treated equally or get equal justice. Without the rule of law, a government can act according to its will without any check on its powers. It can send someone to jail without a fair trial. It can stop people from enjoying their rights without giving any reason. In a democracy, the rule of law is ensured by courts and the constitutions, which put a check on the powers of the government. Now read on the case study of laws of two countries to understand better the rules applied on people in different countries, in different governments. Finally, we have democracy, a popular government. In 1974, only 39 countries of 165 countries in the world were democracies. But by the end of 2001, 121 of 191 countries in the world were democracies. There are various reasons why most countries have a democratic form of government. In a democracy, the government is accountable to the people because those who form the government are elected by the people. Since decisions are taken collectively by elected representatives, they are usually more acceptable to the people. People can also exercise their rights to vote to change the government if they are unhappy with it. None of these features are found in an authoritarian government because the leader of the country has unlimited powers, is not acceptable to the people, and does not have to depend on the people to stay in power. In a democracy, people are free to express their opinion. They can criticize the government and hold protests if they are unhappy or unsatisfied with the government. People enjoy the right to freedom of speech and expressions, unlike in an authoritarian government. It is likely that the view of one person will not be similar to those of another person. However, nobody can be stopped from expressing their views and opinion, and everyone needs to respect the differing views of other person. In this way, democracy promotes tolerance, or in another way, respecting other views. Every human being deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. Democracy promotes dignity by not allowing discrimination of any kind. Everyone is considered equal or and given equal rights and privileges irrespective of caste, religion, class, or race. Unlike most authoritarian government, a democratic government has to respect the rule of law. It helps to protect people's right from being violated and keeps a check on the powers exercised by the government. So these features make democracy a very popular form of government. So this is the end of the lesson. Stay home, stay safe, and thank you.